Welcome, travelers, to PA's Nightmare Wednesdays. As always, welcome to my realm of nightmares. Allow me to be your personal assistant in my realm. Come in, take a seat, get comfortable, for when you step into my realm, there's no stepping out.
Duncan walked into the office of the supervising bishop, ready to tell him the story of Michael and the events that transpired upon his arrival at the house. Duncan started telling his story. Pulling into the driveway of the small 2-story Pennsylvania farmhouse, I had a sense of doubt and uncertainty as to why I was there. The outside was nothing special, just painted white with a blue tin roof. The place looked normal enough and did not give off any negative energies. However, you told me I was needed there, and as a priest, you go where you're needed. I slowly walked up the stone path that led to a set of concrete stairs and proceeded to knock on the front door. After 3 loud knocks, the door opened. A young man in his early 30s with dirty blonde hair and 2 different colored eyes opened the door. His greeting was warm and friendly, but behind those eyes, there was a pain and sadness. This man was tired and looked defeated. He was clearly in need of some help, and this piqued my interest.
You must be the priest I've been waiting for. So nice to meet you. I hope you didn't have too much trouble finding the place. Please, come in.
No, not at all. I always enjoy driving through the country. It's a nice change of pace from the busyness of the city. The name's Duncan. It's a pleasure to meet you. The young man then moved aside, stretching out his arm as an indicator that I may enter the home, and introduced himself as Michael. The house was very cozy and orderly on the inside. Closing the front door, Michael walked ahead, ushering me through a set of double doors that led to his office, which gave it an appearance of long worked hours.
This would give us some privacy from the other people in the house,
Michael said to me. I could clearly hear them talking in the next room as the office door was shut. After shutting the door, he walked over to his desk and asked,
Before we get started, can I get you anything to drink?
Looking back at me, he was clearly hoping I would accept the offer. It was obvious that Michael did not want to have this conversation sober. Usually, drinking would not be something I would indulge in, but if a little liquid courage is what you need to get started, then I will not make you drink alone. I was raised that it's rude to refuse anything your host offers. So, you know what? Why not? If you have any 15-year-old bourbon, I would not object. After that, I took a short pause and continued. Once we have our drinks, if you are ready, we can get started. My bishop has requested that I be able to record our conversation. Do you object to this? Turning to the cabinet behind the desk, he opened the wooden doors and rummaged through, coming back with 2 glasses and a bottle of bourbon.
I don't mind. In fact, I was going to suggest it as well.
He wanted to make sure his story was told properly and in its entirety. After the glasses had a generous amount of the amber liquid in them, he sat down in his black-leather desk chair and motioned for me to do the same. I pulled out my recording device, and upon hitting the record button, his expression grew darker and more ominous. Michael set his gaze on the floor and began.
What I am about to disclose to you is a secret my family has kept for generations and expected me to keep. But it's time for the world to hear my family's tale. For generations now, my family has been cursed. One male in every generation has a choice to make.
With a loud boom, a door could be heard hitting the wall, as well as the laughter of two girls. The recording continued.
I'm so sorry. Please forgive this interruption. Ashley, if you can please take your sister and go play elsewhere. I'm in the middle of a meeting.
He said this in a pleasant but irritated tone. Oh, okay, Daddy. Can we play hide and seek later? Ashley asked with a grin. He smiled at his girls, and with all the love anyone could ask for, he said,
Yes, absolutely anything for my two angels.
Michael sat back down.
Where was I? Ah, yes, my family and its curse. Let us begin with the fact that my family has had a much higher rate of disappearances than the average family. In fact, these files go back as far as my great-great-great-grandfather. I have noticed there are a few similarities in each missing persons case, but I can only verify two of them myself. My grandfather and my father both went missing on their 33rd birthday. Each claimed they were hearing voices before they disappeared, as well as an inverted cross appearing on their left arm. As a kid, I always thought it was a tattoo, which is strange because our family is Christian and would never get a tattoo like that. But I can tell you now that it was not an actual tattoo, because the same mark appeared on my left arm.
Upon hearing this, I leaned forward and asked, Now, tell me, my son, why do you think you and your family are cursed? While heartbreaking, it's not concrete proof of a curse.
Please allow me to continue. We are the last remaining descendants of Christ.
Duncan pauses the recording to state to his bishop. Once he said this, I was struck dumbfounded. Unpausing the recording, Michael continues.
At 3 a.m. on my 33rd birthday, the temperature in my room dropped. It was freezing in there. I always thought the devil liked fire. It turns out he's one cold bastard.
Michael chuckled to himself.
At the same time, my left arm started to feel as if it was burning. I can only imagine it felt like I was being branded like cattle. This is where the inverted cross appeared on my arm. After the pain stopped, I heard the devil speak to me. He said it was my time to choose whether or not I'll accept the gifts he offers and he would spare your family. But if I refused, my bloodline would be eradicated. Standing up and dusting myself off, acting calm and cool, I was anything but. I shouted and pointed my finger at him like he was actually there. Listen to me, you fucking bastard. I will accept your terms, but mark my words. I will be the one to bring your ass to your knees. I will beat you once and for all. And thus began the worst time of my life.
Michael lost his composure for the first time since I met him. Wait, how are we having this conversation if you said yes? Duncan asked with astonishment in his voice.
Oh, you know, a little of this and a little of that. Honestly, it's a long and complicated question, and I'll be happy to answer it right after dinner. You will stay for dinner, won't you, Mr. Duncan?
Michael asked. A loud bell could be heard chiming through the house. Michael stood up.
See, my wife installed the bell because I got so involved in my work I often forgot to eat,
Michael said. Duncan continues to speak to his bishop. Michael looks at me casually and asks if I would like to stay for dinner. Of course I did. I was hoping to get more of the story after dinner. However, that was not meant to be, for the events of that evening were interesting, to say the least. I will tell you in my own words what happened through the night. We left the office and entered the family room where Ashley and Sam were playing. The second Ashley saw her father, she ran up to him and asked, Daddy, can we play? And Mr. Duncan, will you play with us now? Looking at his daughter, clearly seeing their excitement, he was unable to say no.
Absolutely. Let's play. Mr. Duncan, will you join us?
Duncan says, Sure, why not? It would be my pleasure. Now run and hide, girls. We're going to count to 100 and then come find you. But before we could reach 66, a loud crack of thunder and a flash of lightning sounded out through the house, which caused a power outage. The girls both screamed. Michael's wife came running out of the kitchen with flashlights in hand and yelled at Michael, "Go find the girls!" Michael and I ran up the stairs and into the room where we heard the screams come from. As we entered the room, Michael found Sam in the corner crying as Ashley stood by a horde of dead rats. On the floor, she appeared to be playing with them. Getting the girls out of there immediately, Sam was horrified, but Ashley seemed to enjoy the sight, and according to Michael, this was very uncharacteristic of her typical behavior. It was hours before the lights came back on, and even longer before we were able to get Sam to calm down. However, Ashley said she was not scared of the rats, and while talking about the dead animals, she had a hint of a smile on her face, almost as if she enjoyed the sight. Eventually we ate dinner. It was cold, but no one spoke throughout the meal. The silence was unsettling. I believe most of us were unsettled by that night's events. After dinner, I was asked to please stay the night, since it had been a long and rainy day, and the events of that night had spooked Michael. He must have felt safer with me in the house, since I was in need of some rest and did not have the energy to try and get a hotel. I accepted the offer. After getting some rest, in the light of the new day, Michael felt more confident to finish his story.
The next 2 years were horrific. While the devil was controlling me, we performed such vile, horrific deeds, I blocked them out. However, finally, the time came. You see, I did not say yes without a plan. Once I determined that this all was real, I contacted an old friend from the Vatican. I told him what was happening, and he agreed that the devil would eventually get the strength to attack the Vatican. And when he did, they were prepared for him with a ritual from the Dark Ages. It can only be used once, and this ritual was to expel an angel, not a demon. Hence why we are currently having this conversation. I thought it was all over, and I would be free to live out my life in peace. However, not too long after the events at the Vatican, my oldest daughter started to show symptoms of possession. She admitted that she's been hearing voices for a while now. These voices urged her to allow it to take over. The mark appeared on her arm one night as she slept. I was in my room, sound asleep, and heard her scream. I jumped out of bed and threw open her door to see the mark appear on her arm and take note of how cold her room was. Ashley had said yes in that moment. She left a note on her bed that I found, saying that she did not want the devil to hurt anyone else in their family. This was an undocumented possession for the devil, since he usually takes people at the age of 33 and that are male. Ashley was only 13 and a female. This was not his normal MO.
This new development meant we had to act fast if we were going to be able to save the girl. Michael and I contacted the Vatican once more, asking if there was a way we could save her and banish the devil. Originally, they had no idea, but told us to salt the bottom of the door, as well as draw a symbol on the door that will temporarily lock the devil in. After weeks of research and us keeping Ashley contained, the Vatican contacted us and said they found another ritual where we could force the devil out of her and into one of us. After using the sword of the Archangel Michael, that person can be slain by the sword, and in theory, Satan would be banished back to hell. This, of course, was all hypothetical. Since no one has ever performed this ritual before, the next step was to, of course, figure out who would be the one to sacrifice themselves. Michael spoke up.
This began with me, and so it will end with me. It will be me who takes Satan in, and you who kills me. I will do anything I can to keep my daughters safe.
So, we requested a list of rare items that we would need. A wooden cross made from the Palo Santo tree, which has been used by the saints due to its strong spiritual connection. Holy water that has been blessed by the Vatican, as well as holy oil that has been rumored to be able to trap an archangel in the flames until extinguished. An ancient Bible, and finally, the sword of Archangel Michael. Once we acquired all these items and prepared, we went into the room and started to recite the prayer of Psalms. We read aloud,
Have mercy upon me, O God,
according to thy loving kindness, according unto the multitude of thy tender mercies, blot out my transgressions.
Wash me thoroughly from mine iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin.
As they are reciting this, Ashley screams in visible pain. Michael took that opportunity to douse her in the holy water, while I made a circle around her of holy oil. I set the holy oil aflame and continued to recite the verses. For I acknowledge my transgressions, and my sin was ever before me. Against thee only have I sinned and done this evil in thy sight. Thou mightest be justified when thou speakest, and be clear when thou judge. The two continued to read the prayer of Psalms until finally Ashley starts to shake violently and grow still. The air grew cold, and the devil could be heard through the recording, saying,
I need a willing host. Who shall it be? Or will I end your bloodline?
I accept I am yours once more. Do what you will.
Michael screams. Having no other willing vessels he could enter, Satan jumped into Michael. Michael went still, and when he looked back up, his eyes were black, and without missing a beat, I thrust the sword into his heart. Duncan pauses the recording once more. As far as I could tell, the ritual was successful. However, Ashley was still unconscious for hours. Hours later, after performing the ritual, Ashley awakes from her haze, curled in my lap. Duncan resumes the recording. Thank God you're alive. What happened to my daddy? You were possessed. Your father saved you by sacrificing himself. This is where the recording ends, but after the recording, one last thing happened. According to Ashley, after she stood up, she caught a glimpse of movement in the mirror and witnessed the devil winking and laughing at her. Also, according to Ashley, after spinning around, what she saw was the body of her father and nothing more. She said goodbye to her father and ran out of the room crying. So, what are your thoughts about this whole situation? I am not sure, but I don't think this family has seen their last tragedy. Not by a long shot. Tonight's story is written by myself, featuring the very amazing and always talented Viidith22. His links will be in the description below. If you have not already checked him out, please do so. He's a good friend and a very talented narrator. Also, I now have merch. If you would like to walk around representing my realm and gathering me new travelers, the links will be in the description below. Also, as always, I want to give a huge thank you to all my Patreons. 242 Reads, Rando Calrissian, Pam, Silver Threads, Seraphine, the Midnight Bard, and Hair-Raising Narratives. If you would like to join these lovely travelers by the light of my fire, you can do so by becoming a Patreon as well. The support is always appreciated, but never expected.
And as always, travelers, once you step into my realm, there's no stepping out.